Well, hey, hopefully we're about to join you again. We're about to find out. I got to get back here and get warm. It's getting a little cold on my porch. I don't know if Facebook just shut us down because of the things that I'm saying, or if
Did it start a new stream?
yeah, I think it's starting. I think we're starting over. So we'll give everybody a second here, see if everybody wants to come back in. Maybe this is. Maybe this is the way of just shutting me up when I talk too long. So I got to get warm. I got to come stand by the fire. That's not why we got shut off. I don't know if Facebook just shut us down or if my iPad shut us down or what happened. But I apologize, folks. I hope you come back in. It's getting chilly where I am in Jersey Springs. I don't know about you, but even as hot under the collar as I am right now because of all the stealing of this election and the stealing of our liberties because of the COVID crackdowns, I'm still going to need this fire to keep me warm. So, nothing like a good fire. Okay, how we doing on everybody coming back in? We got a few back with us. Now if I can just remember where I was. Okay, I think that'll work. I'm going to scoot back here so I can be closer to the fire. Y'all can still hear me, hopefully. Oh, and a refill on coffee. This might be bad news if you were hoping I'd wrap this up quick. I got coffee and a fire. Yeah, would you mind scooting that this way, man? Bad news if you were hoping to get out of here quick. Good news if you were hoping for more. So I don't know how long I'm going to go today. I may just go all afternoon. My wife's shaking her head no. Okay, let's get back after it. So here's the things those were just observations. Now let's get into where this thing's really going. By the way, just with the whole social media, these guys, man, what Epstein is saying is that they are manipulating the American people in a way that we never thought would happen in America. It is truly Orwellian what's taking place. And so what we've got to do, I think we have to start getting away from these guys, using them less and less. That's why I'm now, did I lose audio?
Just keep going.
That's why we're starting to do more and more on Parler. Please go to Parler and follow me on Parler. You got to look up Constitution Coach. No audio. Okay, we're back
You're
here.
far away. It's just not working.
My what?
You're just far away.
Plug back in. Okay. This is just going to be our tradition. That we always... No, I'm not going to say that. We're always going to have audio problems. Don't say that. I don't even want to put that out there. All right. Anyway, we've got to start using Parler. Constitution Coach is how you can find me on Parler. Same for MeWe. We've got to start moving to these other platforms and stop relying on these social media networks. But then the new one for me this week though is Google. After listening to some of those Epstein interviews, I'm going to stop using Google for my search engine. A bunch of you probably already did that. I guess I've been spoiled and lazy, and they're the biggest, and everything defaults to them. So I'm looking for a good search engine. If you know a good search engine that is not going to manipulate the data and keep all of my data, then let me know. I tried to search for that on Google, and it just said Google. No, I'm kidding. I searched for it and got DuckDuckGo. Is that right?
That's probably the most popular.
Have you heard of that, Trey? Okay, not DuckDuckGoose, DuckDuckGo. I like that. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to start using DuckDuckGo for a little while. If you have a better suggestion, please put it in the notes, and Trey's watching them. He'll let me know what you suggested. Okay, let's get down to some of the facts. Even with all of that manipulation, even with all of the censorship, the fact that you could not even talk about the Hunter Biden scandal, that you could not speak truth about COVID without getting shut down or getting put, like I did, in Facebook jail. The fact that doctors and scientists were silenced by these people. I mean, that had its effect, not just on COVID, but on the election, because by silencing the truth about these things, it gave rise to Biden being able to act like, all because Donald Trump didn't have a mask on, 200,000 more people were going to die. I mean, that's literally the narrative that he pushed in the debates. If everybody would just wear the mask, I mean, all of this baloney. And it would not have captured the American people the way it did if you could have just always seen both sides of the argument. That's what, the Bible says, that one side sounds good until you hear the other side. And that's what we were missing in America this year throughout 2020, and it's just shameful. It's a crime what they've done, and it's had a major impact, and it impacted the election in a big way. But I think even with all of that, I believe Donald Trump still won in a landslide. He carried the down-ballot Republicans over the finish line, and I'll come back to Trump and the presidential race and why I still think there are multiple paths to victory for President Trump. But let's just have a few observations here about Republicans this year, because if Donald Trump did so bad and Joe Biden was so popular and got 80 million votes, the Democrats should have dominated all the way across the country. They should have gained seats in the House, gained seats in the Senate, taken the Senate. They should have gained seats in state legislatures across the country, should have taken over state legislatures across the country, and none of that happened. Republicans held every legislative body in the country that they had going into this election, even though they were supposed to lose some. They took one more legislature, so we now have more majorities in states across the country. In redistricting, Republicans are going to dominate and therefore be able to draw fair lines, and therefore will be winning congressional seats for the next 10 years that we would have been losing if the Democrats had taken over in those states. Just get a hold of this fact right here. Just let this one percolate in your brain a little bit, all right? There were 27 toss-up congressional races for the U.S. House of Representatives. You have 435 members of the U.S. House, okay? 27 toss-up races for Congress. As of today, Republicans have won every single one of them. Please help me understand that. Somebody explain that to me, that Biden had this outpouring of support and supposedly beat Donald Trump by 7 million votes across the country, and yet down ballot, Democrats got decimated and lost. We almost won the House back. I mean, come on. How does that happen? It doesn't. It's scientifically impossible for that to have happened. I know some of my friends are explaining it away and saying it's just because Trump was so obnoxious and he was so hard, people were splitting their ticket and voting. Not to this level. That doesn't have 27 of 27. I mean, go read The Federalist at the Federalist, the .org or .com. I think it's thefederalist.com. They have great articles there, but they had this one on the 5 ways that Biden broke all of history and records, supposedly. This candidate that campaigned from his basement has been in government for 50 years, is a walking, clearly senile at this point. Everybody knows it. And he somehow managed to rise above all of the other Democrat candidates across the country and above all historical trends and do these things. Here's what the Federalist said, that he underperformed Hillary in every major metro area except Milwaukee, Detroit, Atlanta, and Philly. I wonder why those 4 would be so important, that Biden would do so much better in those areas than every other major metro area in the country. Hillary did better than him everywhere else, but in those 4 counties where all the monkey business took place. Trump won all of the bellwether counties by 15% on average. 15%. Nobody's ever lost the bellwether counties and still been elected president. How did Biden do that? Amazing. What else did they say? I already mentioned the record 80 million votes for Joe Biden, despite the fact that enthusiasm polling and everything for Biden was in the tank. Everybody knew. Nobody was excited about Biden. Harris, campaigning from the basement. As he would say, come on, man, there's no way that happened. Here's one scientific fact that most people aren't reporting. Mail-in ballots. In previous elections, the mail-in ballots had a rejection rate of over 6%, 6.3 or 6.5, I can't remember, over 6%. So out of 100 mail-in ballots that come in, 6% would get rejected for some technicality, the signature, the something wasn't filled out right, whatever the reason was. But this time it was only 0.23 or 25%, less than 1%. And let's think about this. This is an election where millions of people are doing mail-in ballots for the first time, and you've got way less rejection rate. Doesn't happen. No, they changed the calibration. They changed the standards so that they wouldn't have to reject ballots that did not meet the legal standard. That's what happened. It's called cheating. That's called breaking the law. Those are the things that happen. And by the way, mentioning those 27 toss-up seats, We also flipped 13 Democrat seats. We flipped 13. It was supposed to be flipping Republican seats to Democrat. We did the exact opposite. Do you have any idea how hard it is to beat incumbents? It's almost impossible. Not impossible, but incumbents in Congress have like a 94% re-election rate because they got all the money, they got all the name ID, they have the power of the incumbency. I mean, it's just very, very difficult. How did we do that and not have a coattail and not have a top of the ballot candidate that would have also gotten those votes? It defies all common sense, folks. You have to be so suffering from Trump derangement syndrome to not be able to see what is right before us. You have to be absolutely deranged by your hatred of Donald Trump to not see that this election is being stolen right before our eyes. Now, I'm not going to spend any time on the fraud and all that. The evidence is pouring in. If you watch the Pennsylvania hearing on Wednesday, you got to hear the litany of things that happened in Pennsylvania. It's overwhelming. Not only the evidence there, the evidence in Nevada, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Georgia. It's unbelievable. And all the lawsuits are finally getting filed. You see a lot of that in the lawsuits. Sidney Powell released her lawsuits Wednesday night, both in Michigan and Georgia. I'm not sure it was the Kraken like it was promised to be, but it is overwhelming. It's not. Some people say it's underwhelming. If it hadn't been built up to be the Kraken, I think it would have been overwhelming. It's underwhelming only because we expected this great sea monster to show up and wipe everybody out. That didn't happen. Okay, but there's a ton of evidence in this lawsuit. I mean, even just the testimony, and I don't want to rabbit trail on the Dominion voting system because I don't think we need that to turn this election. But, I mean, the testimony of these nerds saying, to Biden supporters and others, don't worry, Trump haters, don't worry, the fix is in, we've got this. We're going to make sure that Trump can't win. I mean, that should mean something. Folks should at least pause and go, okay, it doesn't mean they actually pulled it off, but could we investigate that at least? FBI, could we investigate that at least? All of these state police agencies that should be looking into that? It's just insane that stuff would be ignored. Okay, so listen, not even getting off on all of the fraud. I do think that Sidney Powell's explanation of what happened, it makes the most logical sense. If you're trying to just make sense of this, what is the, not Occam's razor, what is that, the simplest explanation usually is the right one? Whatever that term is, whoever came up with, whoever got to name that for themselves. Just take a look at what we all saw before the election, the overwhelming rallies, the overwhelming support for Trump, the enthusiasm factors, all of that. And it makes sense what Sidney Powell's saying about the manipulation of the computer system, but that they didn't think they would need to manipulate it as much as it turned out they needed in order to overtake the massive outpouring for Donald Trump. Now, I realize I'm biased, okay? I wanted Donald Trump to win by a lot. So I am biased in what I wanted to happen. I even said, a couple days before the election or the day of or whatever, that I thought he was going to have a massive electoral victory and that we were going to win in some of these states that we shouldn't win simply because people were so turned off by all the rioting and everything that had happened this summer. So I admit my bias on that. But I think everybody realizes the enthusiasm factor, there was something happening, a movement across this country. And I think that it was such an outpouring of votes that those who were trying to manipulate the data and wanted to steal this election did not calculate for that because all the polling said the opposite was going to happen, that Biden was going to win by 14 points. So that's why they had to stop in the middle of the night and go in and do all these other things that are now being shown as fraud and shown to be true. So let's stop with all the fraud stuff, stop with all the Dominion stuff for this discussion. And let's say even without all that, because this is a vitally important factor, we do not need evidence of fraud for Donald Trump to still win. Yes, it helps. Yes, it takes care of a lot, adds some of the states in play at this point, but it's not absolutely necessary to win. The breaking of the law by public officials is what is needed to win at this point. And they clearly did that. They admit that they did that. They don't call it breaking of the law, but when a court actually looks at it, they're going to have to say, you broke the law. But here's what's happening right now. This is what's developed in the last few hours, okay? And a bunch of you said I was crazy. A bunch of people said that Daniel Horowitz was crazy and Mark Levin was crazy, that we were nuts. Mike Holler and others that helped us research these things said we were crazy 3 weeks ago when we said, you know what? Some of these states, you're not going to be able to figure out who actually won. And therefore, the legislature needs to take back its Article 2, Section 1 power and name the electors themselves. And everybody, that's nuts. That'll never happen. Senator in Pennsylvania is drafting the resolution today to take back the power to name the electors in Pennsylvania. They just might do it, folks. I said all along that that's what they should do, that that's what they could do constitutionally, but that I didn't think they would do it because there's not enough politicians in these states to have the backbone to do it. I'm telling you, folks, it could happen. The movement is in that direction right now. The testimony on Wednesday was so overwhelmingly strong that Pennsylvania's election an accurate outcome cannot be determined, that these legislators were convinced we might have to do that. And so they are now going to have a resolution before them, which most people said they won't even vote on that, let alone actually do it. Nobody's going to propose that. Everybody's been poo-pooing that idea from the beginning, but now here we are. That could happen in Pennsylvania in just the next few days. They may very well exercise their Article 2, Section 1 power under the Constitution as legislators to take that power back. I'm reading some old books on this, a couple of resources from the 1870s and 80s, because there was a couple of elections in the 1870s that really spurred a lot of discussion about who should have the power to choose electors. And the Supreme Court has made it clear, even in Bush v. Gore, even this summer, in the decision on faithless electors, that the legislature has that power, that it's a plenary power, that they can take it back at any time. And so that is going to be at the heart of this, whether or not Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, and then possibly Nevada, but that's a Democrat legislature, so I'm assuming that if they did it, they would have the same outcome as what is currently being reported. But in all of these states, you have major evidentiary issues backed up by evidence. You have major issues of either incompetence, fraud, or outright breaking of the law and changing of the rules. And so with all of that in all of these states, at some point, somebody, whether it is the House of Representatives and Senate in their joint session on January 6th when they open the electoral votes, or the U.S. Supreme Court as this makes its way to the U.S. Supreme Court, one of those two bodies is going to have to make some big, big decisions. And I don't know which way it's going to go. I would say that if I was handicapping it, it's still probably just a 20% chance for Donald Trump. But that's a 20% chance. And it's going to depend on if this momentum continues as more and more of these things are uncovered, that legislators start getting a little backbone. And I would say to people in Georgia, folks, you got to tell your legislators to do something about the election for these U.S. senators. We don't need the exact same replay. We don't need another stealing of the election. So I'm coming to Georgia next weekend. The president's going to Georgia next weekend. Tons of us are coming into Georgia to campaign and to encourage people to get out to vote. But what's the point if the deck's still stacked? If they still are using the same voting system and they're still going to allow for people to do the same thing they did before? So I hope that something is done there to at least make sure this election is verified and that we know for sure that the people that win those two Senate races are the ones that actually got the most legal votes, not illegal. So anyway, all of that to say, what I've been saying, what Mark Levin, Daniel Horowitz, Mike Holler, and others have been saying for 3 weeks is very potentially about to happen. And here's where I think I might have been wrong. I said that this was going to look like the 1876 election. I think what it's actually going to become is a combination of the 1876 election and the 1872 election. Here's what I mean by that. In 1872, as I mentioned on our video the other day, there were two states, Louisiana and Arkansas, whose electors were tossed. They did not get counted in the final count for the presidential election. They were counted in the denominator. So in today's terms, if Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Georgia gets tossed, those are the three I think are most likely to get tossed, then you have 46 electoral votes that are not going to be counted for Joe Biden or for Donald Trump. So neither of them get to 270, but they would be counted in the 538, which means 270 is still the magic number, unless the definition of whole number of electors chosen, which is what the Constitution says, becomes only the whole number of electors sent to Washington, D.C. and accepted by the Congress, then Joe Biden would win. So that definitional debate is going to be huge. But before we get there, if those 3 states are tossed, and this goes to the, in fact, let me just say, in 1872, Arkansas and Louisiana got tossed on the day when they opened the ballots. And back then it was in February. It wasn't even in January. So people are all upset about this taking so long. I mean, back then it was February. Come on. Anyway, so the House and Senate sit in a joint session as the vice president opens these ballots, okay? And in 1872, when he did that, when he was opening the ballots, he started opening Arkansas, and there were objections to the Arkansas delegates, or electors. When he opened Louisiana, there were objections. When there were objections, at that point, they actually break off into the House and Senate and debate whether or not to accept those electors. When they did that in 1872, by the time they came back together, in the case of Arkansas, it was, I may have this backwards, but in the case of one of the states, they agreed. Both the House and Senate said reject the electors, and they didn't count them. In the case of another one body said accept them, one body said reject them, and under the rules in 1872, that meant that they got rejected. I'm going to give you some trivia here because this may come to play. We may be watching this play out before our eyes on January 6th. The current law, federal law that's been adopted by Congress, and I think would probably have to be followed in this case, says that both states have to reject. Both chambers have to reject for them not to be counted. Now, that's a very interesting way to do things. That could potentially get challenged before the Supreme Court, but it's really a legislative decision. So what are they going to do if they've got, the Senate controlled by the Republicans saying, yeah, we're not accepting Pennsylvania. The House is saying they're going to accept Pennsylvania. And now you're going to have a question about what that law passed by Congress in 1870, whatever it was, when these rules were put in place, whether or not they actually reject those electors. So that's why I keep saying the state legislatures, thanks, bud, can head that off at the pass. They can prevent that crisis situation from happening by choosing the electors themselves and saying under state law. And I bet some of you are wondering about this. Just about an hour ago, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals rejected the Trump campaign's appeal on the Pennsylvania case and wrote some snarky things in there. But some of the things they said should give the Pennsylvania legislature more backbone, because what they said was these are state election rules that should be determined by the state. That's why the state legislators have to step in here and say, that's right, and we're going to determine it. We say this election cannot be known. The outcome of who got the most legal votes cannot be known. Therefore, we are choosing the electors. They send that to Washington, D.C. That's how you make sure this election doesn't get stolen. So please, state legislators, step up and do your job. In Georgia, in Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, if we do it in just those 3 states, then we can save this election and make sure that the rightful winner of the election, Donald Trump, is sworn in as president on January 20th. But those legislators are going to have to step up and do their jobs to guarantee that happens. There is the chance it could still happen with 2 sets of electors and with, electors getting thrown out and all those other crazy scenarios that I laid out in my video a couple of days ago. So I don't want to give false hope here. When I say some of these things are huge, that they're breaking, that they're good, that means they're moving in the right direction. It is, as I said, though, 80% chance Joe Biden is going to be president on January 20th, because it's going to take significant backbone, true patriotism, true upholding of the rule of law and the Constitution in order for that 20% chance of Donald Trump winning because the rule of law was upheld to actually happen. It's a sad state of affairs when it's an 80% chance that the rule of law and the Constitution will not be followed. What does that say about our country? It means we don't know our Constitution, we don't follow our Constitution, and we're willing to throw the rule of law out in order to get our way. And that's what I've seen people say on Twitter. I don't care. People have said, I don't care if there was fraud. I don't care if there was cheating. The most important thing is that we defeated Donald Trump. Seriously? Are you kidding me? We told you. We told you they're Machiavellian. They're absolutely end justifies the means. Win at all cost. There are no moral absolutes. It's moral relativism. It's whatever it takes to get what I want. That's their attitude, and that's why we have to fight them We have to defeat them. We cannot lay down on this thing. We have to see this thing through. And even if we see it through and Joe Biden is president on January 20th, we will have laid the groundwork for the restoration of the rule of law and the Constitution. We will have laid the groundwork to motivate millions of Americans to take those, what on paper right now is 73 million people voting for Donald Trump. I think it was probably more like 80 or 85 million that actually voted for Donald Trump. But whatever it is, more than 70 million people, we will have laid the groundwork for those people to restore our country, to bring it back, to win it back, to no longer be split down the middle, but to actually dominate, to start winning with 60, 65% of the vote. That can happen. It can happen if we will show up, if Christians will get off their rears, get off their lazy rear ends and sitting in their pews, thinking they're high and mighty and righteous, and get out in the real world and actually start being salt and light, actually live out our faith, actually become a catalyst in our community where we can restore these things. That's salt and light. What good is salt if it's lost its flavor? What good is the light if you're not using it to dispel the darkness? So wake up. Come on. Get off the couch. Get out there and do. Actually, I take that back. Here's one way you can stay on your couch. All right? You are allowed to stay on your couch if you invite people over to your living room to join you on the couch and watch Constitution Alive on your TV. Okay? So if you want to stay on your couch, heck, you can even start a fire like this. You know what? Look, you could do it on your front porch like I am. I don't care where you do it. Just get people in the room and start teaching the Constitution. You don't have to know any of it yourself. You just got to hit play. All right? ConstitutionCoach.com. Maybe Monday nights you want to join us on our live class. Heck, maybe in December you want to go with us and study the Constitution in person. What's our deadline? Midnight tonight? Yeah? Okay. So midnight tonight, you got to register if you want to go with us December 13th and study with me in person, the Constitution in person, right there in Pahrump, Nevada, and then spend 2 to 4 days, depending on whether you do our 3 or our 5-day course, on the range with us and actually learning how to defend your family. Last chance to do this in 2020. So, Trey, if you would add that link so folks that want to do that last-minute registration can join us in December. If you're in Georgia, please join us on our barnstorming tour. We're headed to Georgia next Friday. We're going to do Friday night, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, Sunday morning, Sunday night. We're hitting locations all over Georgia, and we got a great group coming with us. David and Tim Barton will be with me. We're going to basically do a Wall Builders live radio program for 2 hours in person on stage and have some really cool special guests, Michelle Bachman, Kirk Cameron, Charlie Kirk, Dinesh D'Souza. It's going to be cool, man. We're going to have a great, great time. Congressman Barry Loudermilk, Brad Stein. So anyway, if you're in Georgia, please join us. Or if you're in a surrounding state and you want to come over, you can join us. BarnstormGeorgia.com. BarnstormGeorgia.com is the website, and you can register for one of the events right there on the website. That's going to be a really, really good, fun time. And then I mentioned on our Sunday Facebook Live that December 12th, we might be filming out at Thousand Oaks, California, for some new pieces of our Constitution class, our new one. It's going to be called Biblical Citizenship in Modern America. That date is no longer going to be the date. We had some conflicts for Kirk Cameron and some others, and so don't hold that date any longer. It's going to be sometime that following week. I'm hoping for the 19th, but don't make travel plans. Just kind of pencil in 17th, 18th, 19th. If you want to join us out at Thousand Oaks, it will be a great time, and I'd love to have you a part of our filming for this class that I believe millions of people are going to go through. We've had about 150,000 go through our Constitution Alive program. We're doing this biblical citizenship version of it that our goal is to get into 10,000 churches very quickly and reach hundreds of thousands of people very quickly. Over the next 3 or 4 years, we hope to put millions through that class. So please become a part of that, ConstitutionCoach.com. I've said it over and over and over again, but regardless of who wins the presidency, well, let me rephrase that. Donald Trump won the presidential race. Regardless of who ends up getting sworn in as president on January 20th, our job doesn't change. And I am begging you to become a citizen that is active. I'm begging you to become someone that is the catalyst for a restoration of biblical and constitutional principles right there in your community. And the way to do that is to go to ConstitutionCoach.com today, get signed up, start a class. You can join our class on Monday night nationally. We've got 15,000 registered for this class now. You can join that class on Monday nights or start your own class or do both, right? I encourage you to do both. But either way, get signed up as a coach and start learning these things. That's what's going to save our country, all right? Electing one person for president for 4 years will not save the country. It can stop some of the damage, which Donald Trump definitely did in the last 4 years. It can help us to win some battles. But honestly, folks, politics is downstream of culture. So who gets in office is downstream from what we're doing in our culture to educate ourselves and our friends and our family, to influence the mindset and the convictions and the beliefs of the people in our lives. And we've let the left control media and entertainment and the pulpit and education and all of these different areas for way too long. And so we have to take those back. And I'm asking you to start taking those back by starting with your own education and creating an environment in your community where people can come together and enjoy this and actually have fun learning about what makes a good neighborhood and a good society and a good nation. And that's what we do with Constitution Coach. It's fun, it's entertaining, it's hopeful. You'll leave each one of those classes realizing that we can save this country. We can save freedom, and we may have some states that fall off the cliff and stay crazy, but we can create bastions of freedom across this country, and I'm asking you to join us and be a part of that. ConstitutionCoach.com is the place to do that. I have gone way longer than normal, but there was a lot to say, and Facebook cut us off for a little while, so I know we lost a lot of people on that, and hopefully they'll go back and watch the recording of this second half. And Trey, I know you've been trying to watch the comments. Is there anything I need to address?
A couple of good questions that I wrote for
Yeah, all right, so I'm gonna turn to my fire a little bit here, see if I can't get warm while I'm talking to you. Go ahead, what do we got?
People just want clarification. Did they certify the Pennsylvania and Georgia votes?
Did they certify? I think the I don't know the answer to that. I think they did. I think the lawsuit was trying to stop them from certifying, and that might be why we end up with two sets of electors. If they did certify, and the senators and House members that are trying to create a second, actually take that power back and name the electors themselves might end up sending a second set. So I don't know, honestly. There's so many states right now where this stuff is happening, I can't even keep up, but there's, in some of the states, even though they certified, I mean, I agree with Mark Levin on this. I don't think just because they certify, it's not over, all right? We have to remember that this is a process that has to play out, and everybody's tried to put these arbitrary, that's it. If they certify, or if the electors aren't sent by this particular date, there is no way that they will be considered or chosen. Or I don't think any of that's true. I think the Constitution does not set any of those deadlines in place. I realize that federal law can set those deadlines in place, but if the federal law says it's got to be done by this date, and then you find out there were fraudulent actions and there were all these other problems and everything, that's where courts often step in and say, we're going to extend that date, or we're going to, in order for justice to be served here, we have to give more time for this investigation to take place. So I get the question, and I understand the concern there, and I know that was a big factor in the 2000 recount in Florida. Everything was hinging on that date of getting everything in. But I think there's so much at play here, and this thing is so big, and there's so much evidence of all the manipulation and the problems, that I am not so sure that the court doesn't still step in, even if it's after that date. But I may be, everybody can tell me how wrong I was if that ends up happening, but I think we should consider that could end up being what happens. Go ahead.
There was a question on what we can do to push back against the social media platforms without compromising freedom of the press. Do you want to talk about Section 230?
Sure, yeah. So the question is about pushing back on social media without compromising freedom of the press. And then Trey thought it would be important to point out Section 230. So let's try to grab all that in one quick answer here. The number one way to push back on the social media is start using Parler, Rumble, and MeWe. I know there's some other ones out there, and there may be some that rise to the occasion, but those are the three that it looks like most folks are flocking to right now as they try to leave the oppression of Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. So that's number one. Get on those platforms. Start following me on those platforms, and I'll keep you updated as best I can. and start sharing it with your friends and family. So that's the number one way. And I'm not saying you have to leave Facebook and Twitter and all that, but start doing both for a little while, and then you can decide whether you're ready to leave the other ones. I think there's definitely a time coming very soon where we're going to be asking people to leave those platforms. Let's start hurting their bank account. Let's stop helping them by being on their platform and giving them views and clicks and all of that kind of stuff. So in the free market is the best way to push back on this social media tyranny. And I know somebody's going to say that's not tyranny because it's private market and all that, but here's where it becomes tyranny. They are empowered by government, and that's the Section 230 that Trey's talking about here. So when government gives a business certain special protections, then now government is actually helping or helping tyranny to take place, or preventing tyranny to take place, or whatever the issue may be. And in this case, that's what Section 230 does. It empowers Facebook and Twitter. It gives them special protections, prevents them from being sued by people, and all kinds of other things. So if they're not going to be a neutral platform, they do not deserve that protection. They have broken the agreement. They've broken the deal. In fact, if you get on our weekly Constitution class on Monday nights, Mark Meckler talked about this last Monday, and you can get access to the recording. That's what he used to do. That's what he used to do in the law, was write a lot of these long agreements that these tech companies have. And he was talking during the class. Hey, Arlen. He was talking during the class about the fact that they've broken their own agreements and taken data they weren't supposed to take, and shut us down from being a free platform to let our expression be our beliefs be expressed, and literally what's the word I'm looking for? Literally controlling what we see. And which of our friends can say certain things and us be able to hear those things. That was not the deal that we made with them. That's not what the agreements with Facebook and Twitter were. So anyway, I think he's right. I think Mark's right about that. There's some good arguments there, but politically, it's putting the pressure on the Congress to get rid of Section 230, get rid of the protections that have been given to those guys, and then for us as individuals, it's just voting with your dollars and your time and leaving those platforms and going to platforms that support a free market and support free expression and free speech. So I don't think it affects freedom of the press at all. I think it's a free market issue there, and getting rid of Section 230 doesn't affect freedom of the press either.
Can you speak for a second? This was a question from early on, so I don't have the name. Can you speak to public meetings, government buildings that are preventing people from coming in and testifying on things due to COVID, or requiring them to wear a mask? This person said that they have a friend who's ready to be arrested this next week because she has jury duty, but she's not going to wear a mask to go in. So can you speak to that?
Oh, wow, that's good. Hey, as a side note, got a new book out by my buddy Chris Dunham. That's showing up backwards. I never do set that setting right. Let's see here. I think I can change that setting. It is... Okay. Now let's try it. Oh, look. Rick is a tech wizard. How about that? So there it is. Twilight. How one man gave unity in a verse to my universe. Chris Dunham's new book. Check it out. It's about his relationship with Zig Ziglar, and a good read. You want to get that. What was our question again?
Can you just speak to what we can do to push back against the restrictions that government meetings have right now and people coming in?
So with the government meetings and the restrictions on government meetings, you can push back, absolutely, and I encourage you to push back. The problem is that, if you don't have some states, sorry, I got my thing all crooked there. If you don't have some public officials in that county or that city that are willing to stand with you, it's going to be hard. And they do control the ingress and egress of those government buildings and get to set the rules. So from a state police power perspective, that is their call. I think it's foolish and it's wrong. But for you that you've got jury duty and you're wanting to go into jury duty and not have to wear a mask, they should have an exemption that says that if you're unwilling to wear a mask, you're released from jury duty. So I don't know the answer to that. That's going to be really interesting. I'd love to hear back from you on whatever. Is that tomorrow? You said she's got jury duty tomorrow? Yeah, so I would be very curious to see what happens on that. And definitely call first and find out. Call them and say, hey, I can't wear a mask. I refuse to wear a mask because it's unhealthy for me. It inhibits my breathing and causes all kinds of problems. And so due to my own health, if you're not going to allow me to sit on the jury without wearing a mask, then what happens? Surely you're not going to ask me to endanger my own health. That's the way I would put it.
I think it's a very good question. One person was asking, I'm wondering about all the other states like Maine, where Trump did a lot for the people in that state and the vote didn't go his way. Why aren't those other states being looked at? Well,
the question is about those states that Trump didn't win, like Maine, and why those aren't being looked at. I think you do have to pick your battles here. I actually think Trump did way better in a lot of those states that we wouldn't typically win than what the numbers actually show today. But you've got to pick your battles, and there's no way to fight this in all 50 states, or at least it'd be very, very difficult, and it would actually harm the overall case, I think, because of confusion. So I think they have to narrow this down to these 5 states really at this point. Arizona's almost not even. I mean, there's some potential claims in Maricopa County and there's some overwhelming statistical data there that makes no sense, that somehow Biden got over 1 million votes when Obama had 500,000. Give me a break. I mean, this business of him outperforming Obama in a lot of these areas is crazy. But the answer to your question is you got to pick your battles. And so, you got only so many resources, and you only have so much attention span for even the Supreme Court. So when you bring this case before the Supreme Court, the critical factor is showing that in these states that would turn the election, that there was enough breaking of the law that it was not a free and fair election. And so therefore those states have to be tossed. And since they can no longer be redone, the only 2 options are their electors don't count, or their state legislatures choose their electors. But I don't think they would pull that. I don't know that in Maine you would even have. I don't know that there's even been claims of the monkey business in Maine as much as, because frankly, let's face it, the other side knew where they needed to cheat. They knew they didn't need to cheat in places like Maine. If they were going to win, they had to win in these key cities where miraculously, now maybe he's just a miracle worker, but miraculously, Biden outperformed Hillary in those 4 cities that were essential at the end of the day, but not in any of the other major metro areas. It's just, it's really phenomenal. I think we should canonize the guy. I think there must be something supernatural about Joe Biden, because the things he's pulled off, it would be impossible for anybody else. But Joe Biden must be a superhero.
Michael asked about health checkpoints and proof of vaccination.
Well, friends, look, health checkpoints, proof of vaccination, it's coming. I'm telling you, it's coming. That's why I'm asking for these safe havens, these sanctuary cities and counties that are willing to say no to that stuff. And if you live in a city or a county that does it, and you can't even go into a restaurant without proof of vaccination or whatever other health checkpoints they start putting in place, all over a disease that 99% or more are going to survive just fine. If that's going to happen in your county or city, and we can find some places where it won't happen, we're all going to have to make some decisions about how much we love freedom and whether or not our situation in our lives would allow us to move to one of those places that would be a bastion of freedom, either temporarily or perhaps permanently. I think people are, true lovers of liberty right now are missing a huge opportunity. If I were sitting on a city council or a commissioner's court right now, I would be making my area the most coveted place to live in the country, and pushing for people of freedom to know, if you come here, you get to live in freedom. It would be the biggest economic boom to those cities and counties that would embrace. And the reason I'm not saying states anymore is because I don't know of a state that is truly implementing or could even implement something that strong. Maybe Florida could. Maybe DeSantis has. I mean, he is preventing the mask mandates, and so that's a really good sign. So maybe Florida is a place that you could say that about, and maybe South Dakota, if Kristi Noem will take that additional step and say to these cities, you can't do mask mandates. But she's kind of predicated her whole deal on the fact that she's letting the communities do it however they want, and if they want to do that, they can do that. And so I don't know. It'd be hard for her to reverse course on that particular stance. But at least it means in most of South Dakota, you can still live in freedom and not be forced to put a diaper on your face. But in Florida, if I'm reading this right, if anybody knows any different, if you live in Florida and there's a mask mandate being enforced in your area, I would love to know about it, because the way it's being reported right now is that DeSantis extended the order preventing mask mandates, and here's where that comes down in the law. Greg Abbott could do the exact same thing in Texas right now. If he was willing to make Texas the true bastion of liberty and beacon of freedom that people think it is and that it used to be, then right now he could get rid of all of his dictator orders, and he could order that the counties and the cities cannot do mask mandates. Our Disaster Act gives the governor that authority, so that if there's a discrepancy between local rules and state rules, the state rules override the local rules. So if Greg Abbott really wanted Texas to be the place that people really wanted to move, and that it was the beacon of hope and bastion of liberty, he could do that right now. And that's why I'm so upset with him, because I want Texas to be that, and I think Texas should be that. And the fact that he missed this opportunity, if Rick Perry were governor right now, that's probably what we would be doing. I really think he would have handled this right and not made the same mistakes. Or if he had made the mistake, he might have initially erred on the side of caution and made the same mistakes that Abbott made in the first couple of weeks. But I think he would have backed off immediately and said, no, not on my watch. We're not going to watch liberty be taken and watch Texas become California like Greg Abbott has done. That is the Greg Abbott legacy. He has destroyed thousands and thousands of businesses. Hundreds of thousands of lives have been decimated because of his terrible, terrible leadership this year. And it's a shame. It's a shame, because Texas could have been number one.
You want to differentiate between government mask mandates and retailers asking people to come in with masks?
Yeah, so
Respond to that.
the difference between a government mandate for a mask and a business or a retailer requiring the mask. If a business is requiring you to wear a mask totally on their own, without any bullying by government making them do that, then I support that fully. That's perfectly fine for them to do that. And I'm probably not going to give them my business, but all the people that have bought all the lies, they will give them their business, because they have been, given a spirit of fear instead of a power, love, and a sound mind. And so I realize that's where we are, and it's going to take some time to get out of that. It's going to take people talking about these studies, talking about the science. I'm so sick of hearing the liars say follow the science when they're ignoring the science. But if we do actually start following the science and realize that asymptomatic folks do not spread COVID, therefore there is no reason for a healthy person to be masked. There is no reason for a healthy person to stay home and not be able to go out. There's no reason for you to put on a mask between the entrance of the restaurant to your table if you are not sick. So it's just foolishness. But if a business wants to require that because they think that's going to get them more business, or because that's what they believe, that's totally their choice. But that's not what's happening in most places. In most places, the only reason these businesses are requiring the mask is because they are scared of the government. Not because they're scared of the virus, they're scared of the government. The government has fined. The government has threatened. The government is requiring them to do that in most places. And so that's the real problem, is that it is government coercion and oppression that is causing us to have all of this tension, all of these problems, totally unnecessary. I mean, we're spending all of our time obsessed with COVID, with masks, with infringements on our liberty, and all of these. We're obsessed with it when it was never necessary to do so. It should have been not that different from the Hong Kong flu of the 1968-69. And most people didn't even realize that was happening when it happened. And we lost, 165,000 people compared to today. In today's numbers, it was 125,000, I think, but today's population, it would be 165,000. So not that different, especially since they kept good numbers back then and didn't lie about who was dying of COVID versus with COVID like they are today. So the 250,000 number is completely exaggerated. But even if you buy into that number, Hong Kong flu was not that different, and we did not stop life. People did not social distance. People did not wear masks. People did not shut down their businesses. And we moved through it, just like we do every time there's a really bad flu season. But we have let the government, we have let people with very nefarious goals in mind. Their agenda is not to take care of your health, okay? If you believe that, you are incredibly naive. Their agenda is to control. That is not some conspiracy theory. That is the nature of man. These type of people went into the bureaucracies. They went into government because they love telling other people what to do. They absolutely get off on it. It gives them more joy than anything else in life. If they can write some impossible to comprehend regulation that makes you act in some way, whether it's as a business, set your tables a certain feet apart, or a person to have to wear something or do something or check in or send, they love control. And this has been nirvana for them. This has been a dream situation for them. And we have let them do it. We have been willing to give them control over our lives. I'm not. No more. They don't get to tell me what to do anymore. And I hope they won't get to tell you what to do anymore. Frankly, I haven't let them tell me what to do from the beginning, but that's a whole nother story. Civil disobedience, friends. Now is the time. Do it. Go without your mask. Invite as many friends and family over for dinner as you would like to feed. Open your business. When they show up, put your hands out and say, if you're going to arrest me, arrest me. But don't come in here harassing my customers. If you're going to arrest me for doing what I am supposed to be allowed to do in a free society, open my business, arrest me. I'm ready and willing. We get 1,000 or more headlines like that, and we'll finally put a stop to this. I don't know about you, but when I watch those videos of people being arrested, that kid the other day in a hotel literally knocked out. I mean, that hotel security guy throws his kid on the ground, knocks him out, and carries him out like a sack of potatoes over a mask. If you're shopping at Costco ever again, shame on you. Do not give Costco a penny. They have become one of the worst mask fascist companies in the country. And I don't think they deserve any of our business. Let's hurt them in their pocketbook since they are hurting us with our liberty. Please do not shop at Costco. All you got to do is watch one or two of these videos of people being arrested for not wearing a mask in Costco or harassed by these nerdy mask Nazis, these guys that are acting like girls. They're effeminate. Oh, I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of it.
You know what's interesting about that guy who was choked out? That's the same choke that they're all trying to get police departments to ban since the beginning of the year.
Oh, that kid at the hotel?
Because he choked them out first and then threw him to the ground. That's the same choke.
Yeah, so you can choke people out if they're not wearing a mask. I mean, that's perfectly fine. Use that chokehold, but don't you dare choke out that rapist that you're trying to arrest. I mean, because that would be brutal. I mean, we have lost our ever-loving minds. What else?
That's pretty much good on questions. Just any advice to people on how to motivate local businesses to perhaps push back? I mean, should they be contacting a restaurant and saying we'll flood you with business if you exist?
Actually, it's a great idea. Trey was suggesting, we need to
let people know that they...
Yeah, let people know locally that you will patronize them and support them if they stop the COVID fascism, right? If they stop this craziness, and that you respect their right to have rules, but you won't give them business if they continue to have those rules. Yeah, that's a great point, because most of us, I mean, look, I'm guilty of this. I haven't called a single business in my community, and I've walked out of quite a few that would not, that were going to require me to wear a mask, but then they just get a negative impression of you. So it probably does make a lot more sense to post on their Facebook page, call. If you know business owners, right, call them, and even if you don't, call the business, but I mean, certainly if you know business owners, let them know. Say, hey, we're with you. Open up and be free, and have a sign that says, we believe in individualism. We believe you're smart enough to make good decisions yourself. And if you are sick, please don't come in. But if you're not sick, come in and enjoy freedom. I mean, if we could get enough businesses to do that, we can turn this thing around. But yeah, that's a great idea, Trey. I think let them know. Let them know. Yeah. All right. I went long. It's Friday. It's not even Sunday Front Porch Live, but it does feel good next to this fire, and I just like visiting with y'all. And some might say I just like pontificating and rattling off about whatever's going on, and there's probably some truth to that. But I just can't keep this stuff bottled up, guys. I'm just at this point where, I mean, we've got to sound off. A silent majority is not going to change this. We've got to be a vocal majority. So you do the same thing. Get on Facebook Live. Share this Facebook Live and the previous one before they shut us off with your friends and family. And then get on yourself. Just get your cell phone out and say, hey, I just want to say I love all of you. I care about your health, but I'm smart enough to make decisions about my family's health. Please stop the COVID fascism. Please stop the overreaction. Let's be scientific about this. Let's follow the Barrington Declaration and have focused protection and marshal our resources towards the areas they're needed most and stop infringing on people's liberty. You say that on your Facebook. And with a Facebook Live, they'll probably shut you down if you type it in because of their fact checkers. These $10 an hour people in North Korea, I think, is where they're coming from. At least they act like they're North Koreans. We're going to find out with Candace Owens' lawsuit. I'm so excited that she's suing Facebook and their fact checkers. So we're going to figure out just what their modus operandi is. Okay, I'm starting to pontificate again. Yep, go ahead.
Rob Wagoneer has asked multiple times when we're going hog hunting.
Rob, I want to make that hog hunt happen. I'll have to do some more homework, buddy. But yes, that's going to be fun. All right. God bless you guys. Thanks for putting up with my rambling for a little while today. And be sure and pray for our family. We're going to be traveling for Georgia and Front Sight and some other things the next couple of weeks, and hopefully reach a lot of people and spread some good news and get folks thinking about freedom and doing their part to protect it. That's what we do, and we're glad you're coming alongside us and a part of it. All right, God bless you. We'll see you.